You're going to smile, take my arm, and pretend you've been sleeping in my bed for the last 6 months, he said, his voice low enough that the security team 20 feet away couldn't hear. Or you're going to be detained for questioning, and once they start asking questions you can't answer, you're going to jail. I stared at Matteo De Luca, because of course I knew who he was. Everyone in this room knew who he was, and tried to make my brain work through the crushing weight of panic that had been sitting on my chest since the German Shepherd had signaled at the gift table in the bridal suite. Castellano's security had been running hourly K9 sweeps since an anonymous tip came in. Neutral territory didn't mean safe. I know. He cut me off with 2 words that should have been reassuring, but somehow made everything worse. That's why you're still standing here instead of in handcuffs. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to start in 11 minutes. Through the ballroom's French doors, I could see 200 guests in designer gowns and custom suits, none of them aware that the woman who'd planned every second of this weekend was about to be detained for smuggling cocaine into a neutral territory wedding. Neutral territory, that's what Vincent Castellano's wedding was supposed to be. No business, no violence, no power plays between the 5 families who controlled everything from the docks to the district attorney's office. The kind of truce that held because breaking it meant war nobody could afford. And someone had just used my vendor access system to shatter that truce in a way that would destroy me, and I was starting to understand, trigger something much worse than my personal ruin. I need an answer, Clara. Matteo's use of my first name felt like a hand closing around my throat. Security Chief Romano is waiting for my answer. Either I tell him you're with me, or I let him do his job. I looked at Romano, 6'4", ex-military, the kind of man who followed orders without interpretation. His hand rested on his radio, waiting. Why would you protect me? The question came out sharper than I intended. You don't know me. No. Something that might have been amusement flickered across Matteo's face. It didn't make him look friendlier. But I know logistics. And whoever planted 4 ounces of cocaine in a gift box addressed to the bride used your access codes, your time windows, and your vendor bypass authorizations. That takes planning, intelligence, inside information. My stomach dropped. You think I'm working with someone. I think you're the only person in this building who can tell me who has that level of access to your systems. He stepped closer, and I became acutely aware that he was blocking Romano's line of sight to me. Deliberate, controlled. And I think keeping you close and credible is more useful than watching you get buried in an investigation designed to make sure you never talk. The words landed like ice water. This is a setup, I said slowly. Not just for me. Very good, his voice held the tone of a professor acknowledging a correct answer from a mediocre student. Someone wants to prove contraband entered neutral territory through my guest. That makes me responsible for the violation, which means I either hand over the person who brought it in, or I face sanctions from every family in this room for breaking the truce. The political architecture snapped into focus. He wasn't just protecting me. He was protecting himself from a trap that used me as the trigger. Now, do we have an agreement, or do I step aside and let Romano detain you for something we both know you didn't do? I thought about my brother, about the rehab facility that cost $4,000 a week, about the business I'd built from nothing over 6 years, elite wedding planning for clients whose guest lists read like Forbes and Vanity Fair had a baby, about the loans I'd taken, the reputation I'd protected, the vendors who trusted me. All of it would be gone by morning. What exactly are you asking me to do? Publicly, you're my girlfriend as of tonight. We've been seeing each other for 6 months. Quiet, private, nobody's business. That explains why you have intimate knowledge of my schedule, why I requested you specifically for this wedding, why I'm vouching for your presence here. He paused. Privately, you helped me identify who used your access system and why. You're a logistics expert. I need that brain working for me, not against me. And when we find them, then you go back to your life. I clear your name. We part as friends. It sounded reasonable, professional even, which meant it was definitely a lie. I want guarantees, I said. His eyebrow lifted. Just one. You're negotiating? You need me. That means I have leverage. I forced my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. I want protection for my staff. Nobody touches my team. I want my brother's rehab paid in full, upfront, non-refundable. And I want a written agreement that specifies an exit clause the moment my name is cleared. Your brother's in rehab? Summit Ridge. He's 3 weeks into a 90-day program. I met Mateo's eyes and refused to look away. I'm not negotiating that point. For a long moment, he just studied me. I couldn't read his expression, couldn't tell if I just made a catastrophic mistake or earned something that might resemble respect. Done, he said finally. My attorney will have the paperwork to you by morning. Your brother's account will show a payment cleared before breakfast. Your staff stays untouchable. And physical boundaries, I added, because I wasn't finished. In private, this is professional. I'm helping you solve a problem. I'm not. I don't need to buy sex, Clara. His voice went cold enough to frost glass. When you're in my bed, it'll be because you chose it, not because I paid your brother's bills. Heat flooded my face. Not embarrassment. Something worse. Then we have a deal, I managed. Good. He offered his arm like we were at a garden party instead of negotiating my freedom 20 feet from a security team that wanted to detain me. Shall we? I looked at his arm, at Romano watching us, at the ballroom full of people who would see me walk in on Matteo De Luca's arm and draw immediate permanent conclusions. This was the moment, the choice. I took his arm. His hand covered mine immediately, possessive, warm through the fabric of my dress. To anyone watching, it would look protective, romantic even. Smile, he murmured as we started walking toward Romano. You're a woman in love, remember? I smiled. It felt like baring my teeth. Romano straightened as we approached. Mr. De Luca, we need to proceed with the detention and questioning. My girlfriend and I will be joining the rehearsal dinner now, Matteo said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request. Ms. Hayes has been coordinating this weekend under my personal request. Any questions about vendor access or security protocols can be directed to me. Romano's jaw tightened. Sir, the K9 unit identified a controlled substance in a gift addressed to the bride, delivered through standard vendor channels that process hundreds of items per day. Matteo's voice didn't rise, but something in it made Romano take a step back. I assume you'll be investigating the entire supply chain, not just the woman whose only crime was running an efficient operation. Of course, sir. Excellent. Matteo's hand tightened on mine. We'll be available if you need anything, won't we, darling? The endearment slid under my skin like a blade. Of course, I echoed. Romano nodded, but his eyes stayed on me, calculating, suspicious. The investigation wasn't over. It was just beginning, and now I was tangled in it in ways that made me either protected or the most obvious suspect depending on how the evidence fell. We walked past him, past the security team, toward the ballroom where 200 guests were waiting. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might crack a rib. That was the easy part, Matteo said quietly as we reached the doors. What's the hard part? Convincing everyone in that room that you're mine. He looked down at me, and for the first time, I saw something other than cold assessment in his eyes. And surviving long enough to find out who wants us both destroyed. The doors opened. Every head in the ballroom turned toward us, and I realized with sick certainty that I'd just made a deal with a man who played chess while everyone else was still learning checkers, and I'd agreed to be his most visible piece on the board. The first test came before we'd made it halfway across the ballroom. Matteo, a woman in emerald silk, stepped into our path, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. How lovely to see you, and with a guest. Sophia. Matteo's hand stayed firm on mine, but I felt the subtle shift, in his posture, defensive. Clara, this is Sophia Moretti. Her father handles our shipping interests. Sophia, my girlfriend, Clara Hayes. Moretti. The name triggered something in my mental database. I'd coordinated security briefings for this wedding, knew the key players. The Morettis controlled the ports. Old money, old power. Your girlfriend. Sophia's gaze traveled over me like I was livestock at auction. How interesting. I don't recall hearing about her before tonight. We prefer privacy, I said, surprised by how steady my voice came out. Given the nature of Matteo's work. Of course. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. And what is it you do, Clara, besides planning weddings? The trap was elegant. If I said I was just a wedding planner, I'd look like hired help playing dress-up. If I claimed anything more, she'd ask questions I couldn't answer. I specialize in crisis logistics, I said. Weddings are just the visible part. Most of my work involves managing complex operations under pressure. Mateo appreciates precision. Something flickered in Sophia's expression. Calculation. I'm sure he does. She turned to Mateo. My father would like a word before dinner, about the Newark situation. Tomorrow, Mateo said. Tonight is Vincent's celebration. Of course. Sophia's gaze slid back to me one more time. Lovely to meet you, Clara. I'm sure we'll be seeing much more of each other. She glided away, and I felt Mateo's hand relax fractionally on mine. That was a warning shot, I said quietly. Very good. He guided me toward our assigned table, front and center, naturally. Sophia's father is Luca Moretti, senior advisor. He's been trying to expand his influence for years. And my sudden appearance threatens that somehow? Everything threatens something in this world. He pulled out my chair with practiced ease. The question is always who benefits from the chaos. I sat, hyper-aware of the eyes tracking our every movement. 200 witnesses to a lie I had less than 12 hours to make convincing. The chair beside me scraped as Mateo settled in, close enough that his knee brushed mine under the table. Deliberate, intimate. To anyone watching, we'd done this 1,000 times. Smile, he murmured. Look at me like you know what I look like first thing in the morning. I turned, met his eyes, and felt something low in my stomach twist. He was watching me with an intensity that had nothing to do with performance and everything to do with assessment. Better, he said. But you're still thinking like a planner. Stop cataloging escape routes and start acting like a woman who chose to be here. I didn't choose. They don't know that. His hand found mine on the table, threading our fingers together. For the next 3 hours, you're exactly where you want to be. Can you do that? I looked at our joined hands, at the way his thumb traced slow circles against my palm, a gesture that would look affectionate to observers but felt like a test of my ability to maintain the facade. Yes, I said. Good girl. The words shouldn't have affected me. They were patronizing, dismissive even. So why did heat crawl up my spine? Dinner began. I smiled through 7 courses, laughed at appropriate moments, let Mateo's hand rest possessively on my lower back when he leaned in to whisper commentary about the other guests. He was good at this, the performance. Every touch looked natural. Every glance carried weight. I started cataloging his tells, the way his jaw tightened when Luca Moretti watched us too long from 3 tables over. A silver-haired man with the kind of face that looked grandfatherly until you saw his eyes. The subtle shift in Mateo's breathing when Sophia asked pointed questions about how we'd met. The protective way he angled his body between me and Vincent Castellano's cousin, who'd had too much wine and wandering eyes. You're staring, Mateo said against my ear during the 4th course. I'm learning. I kept my voice low. If I'm going to convince people I've been sleeping with you for 6 months, I need to know how you move, what you like, what makes you tense. His hand tightened on my thigh. Careful, Clara. That sounds dangerously close to interest. It's research, is it? He turned his head, bringing his mouth close enough that anyone watching would assume he was kissing my temple. Your pulse is racing. We're surrounded by people who could destroy me with a phone call. I forced myself to meet his eyes. Of course my pulse is racing. Liar, but he pulled back, his expression unreadable. Dance with me. What? The bride and groom are about to have their first dance. Couples will join them. He stood, offered his hand. We're a couple. We join them. My legs felt unsteady as I stood. Mateo led me to the dance floor, just as Vincent swept his bride, a delicate blonde who looked far too innocent for this world, into a waltz. Mateo's hand settled at my waist. I placed mine on his shoulder, hyper-aware of every point of contact. Closer, he said. You're dancing like I'm a stranger. You are a stranger. Not to these people. He pulled me against him, eliminating the careful distance I'd maintained. To them, I've had you in my bed. To them, I know exactly how you lose control. I know what it takes to make you forget your own name. My breath caught. Stop. Why? You said you needed to learn how I move, how I touch. His hand slid lower on my back, just shy of improper. This is what it looks like when I want someone. Pay attention. The room spun. Or maybe that was just us, moving through other couples who watched with varying degrees of interest and suspicion. You're trying to unsettle me, I managed. I'm trying to keep you alive. His voice dropped to something rough. Every person in this room is looking for cracks, hesitation, proof that you're not what I'm claiming you are. So stop thinking and feel. Feel what? This. He, aportnapading, dipped me without warning, supporting my weight effortlessly. When he pulled me back up, his mouth was inches from mine. The way you fit against me, the way your heart is pounding, the way you want to pull away but you won't because you're too damn stubborn to fail. He was right. I hated that he was right. The air between us felt charged, electric. His gaze dropped to my mouth, and for one breathless second, I thought he was going to close the distance. Then someone cleared their throat beside us. Matteo. Luca Moretti stood at the edge of the dance floor, hands clasped behind his back like a patient grandfather. Might I borrow you for a moment? Time-sensitive matter. Matteo's hand tightened on my waist before he released me. Of course. Clara, wait for me at the table. It wasn't a request. I walked back alone, feeling exposed without Matteo's presence beside me. Romano watched from his position near the entrance. Sophia watched from her table. Even the bride seemed to be watching, though her expression held curiosity rather than suspicion. I'd just reached my seat when Romano appeared. Ms. Hayes. His voice was professionally neutral. I need you to answer a few questions. Routine follow-up. My stomach dropped. Now? I'm afraid it can't wait. We've identified some discrepancies in the vendor access logs that require immediate clarification. I looked toward where Matteo stood with Luca, deep in conversation 20 feet away. Too far to hear, too far to intervene. I'd prefer to wait for Matteo, I said. This will only take a moment. Romano gestured toward the exit. Unless you have something to hide? The trap was elegant. Refuse, and I looked guilty. Agree, and I faced interrogation alone. I stood. Lead the way. We walked through the service corridor in silence. Romano opened a door to a small office that had been converted into a temporary security station. 2 other men waited inside. One I recognized as the K9 handler, the other wearing the bland expression of law enforcement trying to look civilian. Ms. Hayes, Romano gestured to a chair. Please sit. I sat, keeping my hands visible on the table. Every instinct I had screamed that this was a mistake. Can you explain why your credentials were used to bypass the gift screening protocol at 6:47 p.m. this evening? I didn't bypass any protocol. I kept my voice steady. All vendor deliveries are logged through my master system. If something bypassed screening, someone else used my access. And who has your access codes? No one. They're biometric linked to my credentials. Yet the system shows your credentials authorizing a delivery bypass. Romano slid a printout across the table. Care to explain that? I looked at the document, saw my credential ID, saw the timestamp, saw the approval code I'd never entered. This is forged, I said. Can you prove that? Yes. I pulled out my phone, opened my vendor management app. Every authorization I make generates a secondary confirmation code sent to my registered device. Show me the confirmation code for this entry. Romano hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. The system doesn't always generate confirmations, he said. Yes, it does. It's a security feature I implemented specifically to prevent fraud. I kept my tone professional, but my heart was hammering. If there's no confirmation code, the authorization is fake, which means someone accessed the backup authentication system, the override protocol for technical failures, and used it to spoof my credentials. The law enforcement officer leaned forward. Or you deleted the confirmation. Check the phone records. I held up my device. Every confirmation is time-stamped and stored in my message history with the system server. The messages can't be deleted from my end without leaving an audit trail. I'm happy to provide full access. The door opened. Matteo stepped inside, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Gentlemen, his voice was soft, deadly. I believe I made it clear that Ms. Hayes doesn't answer questions without me present. Mr. DeLuca, this is a routine. Nothing about tonight is routine. Mateo moved to stand behind my chair, his hand settling on my shoulder. Ms. Hayes has been cooperative. She's offered evidence that supports her innocence. Unless you have probable cause for arrest, I suggest we end this conversation. Romano exchanged glances with the law enforcement officer. Some silent communication I couldn't read. We'll need to examine your phone, Romano said finally, looking at me. Tomorrow. Mateo's voice turned to ice. Tonight, she's a guest at this wedding. Tomorrow, with her attorney present, you can submit a formal request through proper channels. Until then, we're done here. He guided me toward the door before Romano could object. We made it back to the hallway before my knees gave out. I sagged against the wall, gasping like I'd been underwater. Breathe, Mateo said. Not gentle, commanding. In, out. Count it. I counted. The panic receded slowly. They're building a case, I said when I could speak. The forged authorization, the lack of confirmation codes. They're going to say I deleted evidence. I know. You know? That's all you have to say? I pushed off the wall, anger cutting through fear. I just proved my credentials were cloned, and they didn't care. They want me guilty. Of course they do. Mateo caught my wrist when I tried to walk away. This was never about finding the truth, Clara. It's about creating a narrative that justifies sanctions against me. You're just the mechanism. Then what was the point of all this? I gestured between us at the lie we'd been performing all night. If they're going to arrest me anyway, they won't. He pulled me closer, his grip firm, but not painful. Not while you're mine. Not while I have leverage they need. What leverage? Information they don't know I have. His thumb brushed across, my racing pulse. And a wedding planner who's about to become very useful in ways Romano hasn't anticipated. I stared at him, at the cold calculation in his eyes that I was starting to recognize as his version of caring. What do you need me to do? Your vendor system tracks more than just deliveries. It tracks personnel, timestamps, access points. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. Tomorrow, you're going to show me every person who had the ability to access the backup authentication system. And then we're going to narrow down who wanted to. That could be dozens of people. Then we'd better start early. He straightened, his hand sliding from my wrist to my hand, threading our fingers together like we'd done it 1,000 times. Can you make it through the rest of the dinner? We've been gone 8 minutes. Any longer and people will notice. I thought about my brother, about the business I'd built, about the way Romano had looked at me like I was already guilty. Yes, I said. Good. He led me back toward the ballroom, but stopped just before we reached the doors. And Clara? Whatever Lucas said to me in there, whatever moves he's making, you need to understand that this game has rules older than both of us. I can't protect you from everything, but I can make sure that when they come for you, they have to go through me first. What did he say to you? That you're a liability he's willing to remove. Mateo's jaw tightened. And that I should consider whether one woman is worth the trouble she's bringing. Ice slid down my spine. What did you tell him? That she's not just any woman. He pushed open the ballroom doors. That she's mine, and anyone who touches what's mine answers to me personally. We walked back into the ballroom together. The music had shifted to something slower. Couples swayed on the dance floor. Vincent and his bride sat at the head table, wrapped in their own world. No one looked at us directly, but I felt every gaze tracking our movement back to our table. Mateo pulled out my chair. I sat. His hand rested on my shoulder for just a moment, possessive, protective, before he took his own seat. Smile, he murmured. You just spent 8 minutes in a private hallway with me. You should look satisfied. Heat flooded my face, but I smiled. Let my hand find his under the table. Let my head tip slightly toward his shoulder in a gesture that could have been exhaustion or affection. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of forced conversation and careful touches. Every interaction felt like walking a tightrope. Every smile felt like a performance I couldn't afford to fail. By the time Vincent stood to give a toast, my face hurt from smiling and my shoulders ached from tension. To my beautiful bride, Vincent said, raising his glass, and to all of you who've made this celebration possible. May we all find the kind of love that makes us better than we were before. Everyone drank. I drank. The champagne tasted like expensive regret. Mateo's hand found mine again under the table, squeezed once. A gesture that could have meant anything, or nothing. The party began to wind down around 11. Guests filtered toward the exits in clusters, making their goodbyes, scheduling meetings, trading the kind of information that looked like small talk, but carried the weight of business deals and territory agreements. Mateo walked me to the valet stand, his hand firm on my lower back. "Where are you staying?" he asked. "The Meridian. I always book close to the venue for weekend events." "Not anymore," he signaled to a black car that pulled up immediately. "You're staying at my apartment, starting tonight." "That wasn't part of the deal." "The deal changed the moment Luca threatened you." He opened the car door. "Romano's going to be watching. Sophia's going to be watching. Every person in that ballroom is going to be looking for proof that we're lying, which means you need to be exactly where a girlfriend would be." "In your bed?" "In my home." His expression was unreadable. "What happens in the bed is still your choice, but the address on your hotel checkout needs to be mine by morning." I looked at the car, at the driver who carefully wasn't looking at us, at the ballroom behind us where 200 people had just watched me perform the role of Matteo De Luca's girlfriend. "I need to pack my things," I said. "Already handled. My people are collecting your belongings from the Meridian now. They'll be at the apartment when we arrive." "You had people go through my room?" "I had people professionally pack your belongings and handle your checkout." He gestured to the car. "Everything will be exactly as you left it, plus a few security upgrades you'll appreciate." I wanted to argue, wanted to push back against the way he was reorganizing my life without asking. But I was too tired, too scared, too aware that he was right about the surveillance we'd be under. I got in the car. Matteo slid in beside me and the door closed with the heavy thunk of expensive engineering. The privacy screen was already up between us and the driver. We drove in silence for several minutes. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows. "Tomorrow," Matteo said finally, "we start identifying who has the technical access to clone your credentials. I'll have my IT security team available. They'll work with you to map the access points. And then we narrow down motive. Who benefits from framing you? Who benefits from making me look compromised?" He looked at me, and something in his expression softened. Barely. "Who's desperate enough to violate neutral territory and risk the kind of war that destroys families?" "You think it's someone inside your organization. I know it is." His voice went cold. "The question is who and how deep the rot goes." The car pulled up to a building I recognized, one of the new luxury towers overlooking the Hudson, the kind of place where penthouses sold for 8 figures and came with their own private elevator access. Of course. The driver opened my door. Matteo guided me through a lobby that looked more like a modern art museum than a residential building, into a private elevator that required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. "Your print will be added to the system tonight," Matteo said as we rode up, along with access codes for the secondary entrances and the secure server room. Why would I need access to a secure server room? Because that's where we're going to build our case. The elevator doors opened directly into his apartment. "Welcome home, Clara." I stepped into a space that was all floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, and the kind of lighting that made everything look like it belonged in an architecture magazine. My suitcases sat neatly beside the entrance. "Your room is down the hall, second door on the left." Matteo shrugged off his jacket, loosened his tie. "Bathroom is en suite. The kitchen is fully stocked if you're hungry. Security monitors are in the office. Third door on the right. Don't touch the encrypted files marked with red flags unless I'm present." I just stared at him. "What?" he asked. "You're really just going to let me sleep in a separate room? No pressure, no expectations?" "I told you once already." His eyes met mine, dark and unreadable. "When you're in my bed, it'll be because you chose it, not because you had nowhere else to go." Something in my chest twisted. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Don't thank me yet." He moved toward the office. "We start at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Wear something comfortable. It's going to be a long day." He disappeared through the office door, leaving me standing in his living room, surrounded by my hastily packed life. I found my room, unpacked enough to feel slightly less unmoored, changed into the tank top and sleep shorts I'd packed for a hotel room. not for sleeping 20 feet away from a man who looked at me like I was both a problem to solve and something he wanted to take apart with his hands. I should have been exhausted. Should have collapsed into sleep the moment my head hit the pillow. Instead, I lay awake, listening to the quiet sounds of Matteo moving through his apartment. Water running, a door closing, the soft beep of a security system being armed. And I wondered exactly how long I could keep pretending that the heat I felt when he touched me was just part of the performance. I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Matteo's voice, low and clipped, coming from somewhere in the apartment. 6 a.m. exactly. I dragged myself out of bed, pulled on jeans and a sweater, and followed the sound to the kitchen where Matteo stood with his phone pressed to his ear, already dressed in dark slacks and a shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. He gestured to a coffee mug waiting on the counter. Black, no sugar. How did he know? Understood, he said into the phone. Have the files ready when we arrive. He ended the call, looked at me. You slept. You say that like you're surprised? Most people don't sleep their first night in a strange place, especially not when they're being framed for trafficking. He took a sip of his own coffee. You're either very brave or very good at compartmentalizing. Or very tired. I wrap my hands around the warm mug. What time is your IT team arriving? They're not. We're going to them. He checked his watch. The secure facility is in Brooklyn. Breakfast is in the car. You really don't waste time, do you? Time is the one thing we don't have. He moved past me toward the office. Romano submitted his formal request for your phone at 5:47 this morning. My attorney is stalling, but we have maybe 48 hours before a judge forces compliance. My stomach dropped. 48 hours to find who cloned my credentials and prove they framed me? 48 hours to build enough reasonable doubt that Romano's case falls apart before it reaches an indictment. He emerged from the office with a tablet and a leather messenger bag. Get your phone. We'll need your vendor system access. 23 minutes later, we were in the back of the same black car, heading across the bridge into Brooklyn. Matteo worked on his tablet while I picked at a croissant I couldn't taste. Walk me through your vendor system architecture, he said, without looking up. Who has admin access? Me, obviously. My business partner, Jessica. She handles the financial side. And our lead coordinator, Ryan Mitchell. He manages the vendor database and handles all the technical integration with our security protocols. Anyone else? The system company has emergency override access, standard in the service agreement. I pulled up the vendor app on my phone. But they'd need corporate authorization and my explicit permission to use it. Unless someone inside the company bypassed that requirement. Matteo made a note on his tablet. We'll need their employee roster. Every person who's touched your account in the last 6 months. The car pulled up to a nondescript building in an industrial area that looked like it housed warehouses. Not whatever Matteo considered a secure facility. Inside, it was different. The lobby required 3 separate security checks. The elevator needed both Matteo's fingerprint and a rotating security code. And when we finally entered the operations floor, I found myself in something that looked like a cross between a tech startup and a military command center. A woman in her 30s with short dark hair and the kind of focused intensity I recognized from crisis logistics specialists approached us immediately. Mr. DeLuca, Ms. Hayes. She shook our hands with brisk efficiency. I'm Nina Castellano, head of digital security. We've already begun the preliminary analysis based on the files you sent over. Castellano, Vincent's family. Of course, Matteo's digital security would be run by someone with that kind of connection. Nina led us to a conference room where 3 monitors displayed what looked like architectural diagrams of my vendor system's security structure. Your backup authentication system, Nina said, pulling up a detailed schematic, uses a 2-factor override protocol. Factor 1 is a master admin code, which would be held by you, your business partner, and your lead coordinator. Factor 2 is a time-sensitive token generated by the system company's security server. So someone would need both, I said. My admin code and access to the system company's token generator. Exactly. Nina highlighted a section of the diagram. The question is, who could obtain both? Let's start with your admin code. Where is it stored? Encrypted on my phone and laptop, and in a secure password manager that Ryan set up for the 3 of us. Ryan Mitchell, your lead coordinator? Yes. He's been with me for 4 years. Handles all our technical infrastructure. I hesitated. He's one of the most trustworthy people I know. Matteo and Nina exchanged a glance I couldn't quite read. We'll come back to him, Nina said. Could anyone have accessed your devices during the wedding setup? I thought about the chaos of the weekend. The moments my phone sat on a vendor table while I coordinated deliveries. Maybe, I admitted. During setup, my devices are sometimes unattended for a few minutes at a time, but they're password protected. Passwords can be bypassed. Nina typed something, and a new screen appeared. What about your business partner, Jessica Chen? We've worked together for 4 years. I stopped. Tried to think objectively instead of defensively. She's trustworthy. I'd stake my business on it. I have staked my business on it. People change when the pressure's right, Matteo said quietly. Or when the money's right. We check everyone. Nina pulled up what looked like financial records. Jessica Chen, age 32, partner in Hayes Chen Event Management, no significant debts, no unusual financial activity in the last 6 months. She paused. But there is something interesting. She received a consulting payment 3 weeks ago from Moretti Logistics. $15,000. The room went silent. That's not possible, I said. Jessica would have told me if she was doing outside consulting. It's in our partnership agreement. Unless she was hiding it. Nina zoomed in on the transaction details. The payment is listed as Vendor Optimization Consulting, signed off by Luca Moretti personally. Ice spread through my chest. Luca Moretti paid my business partner $15,000 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks before Vincent's wedding, Matteo said. His voice had gone very quiet, very cold. 2 weeks before someone used your credentials to plant evidence that would frame both of us. Jessica wouldn't, but even as I said it, doubt crept in. $15,000. The kind of money that could solve problems, the kind of money that came with strings attached. I need to talk to her. No. Matteo's hand caught my wrist before I could reach for my phone. If she's involved, confronting her directly will just give her time to cover her tracks or disappear. Then what do you suggest? We keep digging. He turned to Nina. What about the system company? Who there has override access? Nina pulled up a new set of files. The vendor management system is operated by Secure Event Solutions. They have 4 senior technicians with emergency override capabilities. She displayed their photos and profiles. All 4 have been with the company for at least 3 years. No red flags in their backgrounds. But there's something else. Secure Event contacted us this morning. They've been conducting their own internal investigation since they heard about the security breach at the Castellano wedding yesterday. They're concerned about liability exposure. Good, Matteo said. Fear makes people cooperative. Except one of those 4 technicians generated the token that bypassed Clara's authorization, I said. Which means either they were bribed, coerced, or someone hacked their access. We're pulling their financial records now, Nina said. But that takes time. Bank subpoenas, legal channels. We don't have time for legal channels. Matteo stood, began pacing. Romano's clock is ticking. We need leverage now. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Where are you? Romano's people showed up at the office asking questions. Are you okay? I showed Matteo the screen. Don't answer yet, he said. Let her worry. Worried people make mistakes. Or worried innocent people panic. I looked at him. Jessica's been my partner for 4 years, my friend. I'm not going to ghost her just because Luca Moretti wrote her a check. That check is evidence of contact with the enemy. Or evidence that she did exactly what the payment description says, vendor optimization consulting. The Morettis run legitimate businesses too. It's not a crime to consult for them. It is when it coincides with a frame job that benefits them. We stared at each other across the conference table. Nina watched us both with the careful neutrality of someone who knew better than to get between 2 people having a territory dispute. I know her, I said finally. Let me handle this my way. Your way gets you arrested. Your way assumes everyone's guilty until proven otherwise. I stood, matched his stance. I'm not going to treat my best friend like a criminal based on one financial transaction. If you want my cooperation on this investigation, you give me room to do it my way. Something flickered in Matteo's expression, surprise, maybe, or respect. Fine, he said. Call her, put it on speaker. But if she says anything that sounds like coaching or deflection, we end the call and do this my way. I dialed. Jessica answered on the second ring. Clara, oh my God, where are you? Romano's guys? We're here for an hour, asking about your access codes and vendor protocols, and… She took a breath. Are you in trouble? Maybe. I don't know yet. I kept my voice calm. Jess, I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you do any consulting work for Moretti Logistics? Silence. Jess? How did you… She made a frustrated sound. Okay, yes. Luca Moretti contacted me 6 weeks ago. He said he was planning a major corporate event and wanted advice on streamlining his vendor management system. It was a one-time consulting gig, $15,000 for a weekend of system architecture review. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd worry. Her voice went defensive. You always get weird about working with anyone connected to that world. But it was legitimate work, Clara. I reviewed his logistics software, made recommendations, got paid. That's it. Did you give him any information about our system? Of course not. Client confidentiality works both ways. She paused. Wait. You think I had something to do with whatever Romano's investigating? I looked at Matteo. He was watching me, expression unreadable. Someone used my credentials to bypass security at Vincent's wedding, I said. Someone who knew how our backup authentication system works. And you think I helped them? Jessica's voice went sharp. Are you serious right now? I'm trying to figure out who had the access and the knowledge to clone my credentials. You're one of 3 people who fits that profile. Then talk to Ryan, or better yet, talk to the system company, because I didn't do this, Clara. I wouldn't do this. She took a shaky breath. I can't believe you're actually accusing me. I'm not accusing you. I'm asking questions. Same thing. The line went dead. I set the phone down slowly. Matteo was still watching me. Well, I said. Satisfied? No, because now she knows we're looking at the Moretti payment. If she's involved, we just gave her time to prepare her cover story. If she's not involved, we just lost a potential ally. He turned to Nina. Pull everything you can on that consulting engagement. Contracts, deliverables, communications. I want to know exactly what Luca asked for and what Jessica provided. On it, Nina said. Matteo's phone rang. He looked at the screen, and something in his expression shifted. I need to take this. He stepped out of the conference room. Through the glass wall, I watched him pace as he talked, his free hand gesturing sharply. Nina cleared her throat. For what it's worth, I think you were right to call her directly. Matteo doesn't seem to agree. Matteo doesn't trust anyone. It's kept him alive this long. She pulled up another screen. But trust and survival aren't the same thing. Sometimes you have to risk the first to achieve the second. Before I could respond, Matteo came back in. His expression was grim. We have a problem, he said. That was my attorney. Romano just escalated. He's filed for an emergency. Hearing to compel your phone records. The hearing was at 9 a.m. 20 minutes ago, the judge granted it. We have until 5 p.m. today to comply, or you're in contempt. My stomach dropped. Today? That's 8 hours, Matteo finished, which means we're out of time for careful investigation. We need a different approach. What kind of approach? He looked at Nina. Can you clone Clara's phone? Make it look identical, but strip out anything that might be genuinely incriminating? That's evidence tampering, I said. That's survival. Matteo's voice was flat. They want your phone? Fine. We give them a phone. Just not the one with your actual data on it. I won't let you destroy evidence. I'm not destroying anything. I'm protecting you from a rigged investigation. He moved closer, his intensity almost physical. You think Romano wants the truth? He wants a conviction. He wants proof that you're guilty so he can use you to sanction me. Your actual innocence is irrelevant. Then we prove my innocence legitimately. We don't have time. His hand slammed down on the table hard enough to make me flinch. In 8 hours, they take your phone. In 24 hours, they'll have enough cherry-picked data to make you look guilty regardless of the truth. In 48 hours, you're under arrest, and I'm facing commission sanctions that will destroy everything I've built. The room went silent. Nina stood quietly. I'll give you 2 some privacy. She left. The door clicked shut behind her. I looked at Mateo, at the tension in his shoulders, the barely controlled fury in his eyes. "You're scared," I said. "I'm realistic." "No, you're scared." I moved closer to him. "You've built this entire world on control and calculated moves, and now you're in a situation where control isn't enough, where calculation isn't enough, and it's terrifying you. You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I?" I held his gaze. "You told me last night that you can't protect me from everything, that this game has rules older than both of us. But the truth is, you hate that there are rules you can't break. You hate that there's a game you can't win by being smarter or richer or more ruthless than everyone else." His jaw tightened. "Are you finished?" "No," I took a breath. "I won't let you tamper with evidence, not because I'm naive about how rigged this is, but because the moment we start playing by their rules, lying, cheating, destroying evidence, we become exactly what they're accusing us of being. And I didn't build my business by being someone I'm ashamed of. I'm not starting now." "Then what do you suggest?" His voice was razor sharp. "We hand over your phone and hope Romano plays fair?" "No. We find the real evidence before 5 p.m. We prove who actually cloned my credentials." I pulled out my phone, opened my vendor app. Nina said the backup authentication requires a time-sensitive token from the system company's server. That token had to be generated at a specific time, 6:47 p.m., when the bypass happened, which means there's a log entry, a record of who requested it and why. Mateo stared at me. "You want to ask the system company for their internal authentication logs?" As a client who's been compromised, yes. I was already composing an email. Secure Event Solutions has a vested interest in proving their system wasn't hacked. If someone inside their company generated a fraudulent token, they'll want to know about it. Nina said they're already investigating. This gives them a reason to share what they've found. And if they refuse, then we escalate, but we try the legitimate path first. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. "I'm not tampering with evidence, Mateo, not even to save myself." He looked at me for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression, that same flicker of respect I'd seen before. "You're either the most principled person I've ever met," he said quietly, "or the most stubborn. Can't I be both?" The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "We'll see if your principles keep you out of jail." My phone buzzed. An email response from Secure Event Solutions, flagged urgent. I opened it, read it twice to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. "They're sending someone," I said. "Their head of security is coming here with the authentication logs. He says they've been conducting an internal investigation since yesterday, and they're prepared to cooperate fully. He'll be here in 90 minutes. Mateo's eyebrows lifted. That was fast. They're terrified of a lawsuit. If someone inside their company helped frame a client, they're liable. I looked at him. See? Legitimate paths sometimes work. Sometimes. He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my attorney. Tell him to stall Romano until we review those logs." He stepped out again. I sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. Nina came back in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed me one. "That was impressive," she said. "What was?" "Standing up to him. Most people fold when Mateo goes into crisis mode." She sat across from me. "He's not used to people who have lines they won't cross. It throws him off balance." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" "With Mateo?" She smiled slightly. "Probably both." The next 90 minutes crawled by. Nina walked me through the vendor system architecture in excruciating detail. Mateo paced, made calls, reviewed files with the kind of focused intensity that made me tired just watching him. At 10:43 a.m., building security called up. Secure Events head of security had arrived. The man who walked into the conference room was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with the nervous energy of someone who knew his company's reputation was on the line. "Ms. Hayes, I'm David Park, Chief Security Officer for Secure Event Solutions." He set a laptop on the table, already pulling up files. "I want to be very clear. What happened at the Castellano wedding is unacceptable. If someone inside our company facilitated unauthorized access, they will be terminated and prosecuted. We've been investigating internally since we received the initial incident report yesterday, and I'm authorized to share our findings with you. Show us the authentication logs, Matteo said. Not a request. David pulled up a detailed spreadsheet. This is every token generation request from the past 30 days. Each entry shows the requesting user, timestamp, authorization code, approval chain, and critically, the IP address from which the request originated. I scanned the list, found the entry for 6:47 p.m. on the wedding date. My blood went cold. That's impossible, I whispered. Matteo leaned in. What? I pointed at the screen. At the requesting user field that showed a name I recognized immediately. Ryan Mitchell, my lead coordinator. The person I'd trusted with my entire vendor database and security architecture. No, I said. Ryan wouldn't. He's been with me since the beginning. Where is he now? Matteo's voice cut through my denial. I pulled out my phone, checked our team chat. Ryan's last message was from yesterday afternoon. Heading out early, taking a few personal days. See you next week. Personal days. Right after the wedding where my credentials were used to frame me. There's more, David said, pulling up additional data. The token request originated from an IP address that doesn't match any of your company's registered locations. It came from a coffee shop in Red Hook, public Wi-Fi. Someone covering their tracks, Matteo said. Yes and no. David highlighted another section. Here's where it gets interesting. We cross-referenced Ryan Mitchell's employment records with our billing data. 2 months ago, someone made an inquiry about your account's backup authentication protocols, specifically asking about the technical specifications for generating emergency override tokens. That inquiry came from an encrypted email, but the payment for the information came from a shell company we've since traced back to Moretti Logistics. Luca bought the information on how to bypass Clara's security, Nina said. Then he recruited someone on her team to execute it. But why Ryan? I stared at his name on the screen, trying to reconcile the loyal coordinator I knew with the person who'd just destroyed my life. He had no reason to. Find him, Matteo said to Nina. She was already typing. On it. David cleared his throat. There's one more thing. We flagged Ryan Mitchell's account activity from the past 60 days. 3 weeks ago, he received a wire transfer for $25,000 from the same shell company linked to Moretti Logistics. The transfer memo listed it as consulting services rendered. $25,000, more than Jessica's payment. More than Ryan made in 2 months working for me. He sold me out, I said quietly, for $25,000. Nina's computer beeped. Found him. Ryan Mitchell booked a flight to Costa Rica, departing JFK at 2:15 p.m. today. I looked at the clock. 11:07 a.m., 3 hours and 8 minutes. If he leaves the country, getting him back could take months, long enough for Luca to rewrite the story, Matteo said. If he gets on that plane, we lose him. Can't we just call airport security? I asked. Have him detained? On what grounds? Matteo's expression was grim. We have circumstantial evidence and financial records that suggest he was paid by Luca. But we don't have proof he committed a crime, just that he requested a legitimate authentication token using his authorized access. A good attorney could argue he was doing routine system maintenance. He used public Wi-Fi to hide his location, I said. That's consciousness of guilt. It's suspicious, not criminal. Matteo was already moving toward the door. We need a confession, or we need him to lead us to Luca. Either way, we need to get to that airport. I stood, my mind racing. If Ryan talks to us, if we can get him to admit Luca paid him to frame me, that's evidence we can use. Matteo looked at me. Can you do it? Can you face the person who just betrayed you and stay calm enough to get him talking? I thought about my brother, about the business I'd built, about the way Ryan used to bring coffee for the whole team during overnight event setups, about the trust I'd placed in him, about the flight to Costa Rica that said he knew exactly what he'd done and was running from it. Yes, I said. Then let's go. He turned to Nina and David. Send everything you have to my attorney. Authentication logs, financial records, IP addresses, all of it. We need this documented before Ryan disappears. Already on it, Nina said. We were in the car 4 minutes later, heading toward JFK. Mateo made calls while I sat in silence, trying to process the betrayal that felt like a physical wound. "Talk to me," Mateo said after ending his third call. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about all the times Ryan stayed late to help me troubleshoot vendor issues. All the times he said he believed in what we were building." I looked out the window at the city blurring past. "I'm thinking about how stupid I was to trust him." "You weren't stupid. You were loyal. There's a difference." "Is there? Because right now it feels like the same thing." "It's not." His hand found mine, squeezed once. "Loyalty is a strength, Clara. The fact that people exploit it doesn't make you weak. It makes them cowards." I looked at our joined hands. The gesture should have felt performative. We weren't in public, weren't being watched. But it didn't feel like performance. It felt like something else entirely. "What happens if we get to him and he won't talk?" I asked. "Then we make sure he doesn't get on that plane. Buy ourselves time for my people to find Luca's payment trail and connect all the dots." Mateo checked his watch. "We have 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to stop him. Enough to clear your name." He looked at me, and something in his expression softened. Barely. "Enough to prove that the person who trusted her team wasn't the problem. The person who sold her out was." The car accelerated through traffic, weaving between lanes with the kind of aggressive precision that suggested our driver knew exactly how urgent this was. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "I know you don't trust me right now, but if you need help, I'm here, always." I showed Mateo the screen. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think even if she's innocent of the frame-up, she still gave Luca information about your security systems during that consulting gig. Information he used to identify vulnerabilities." He paused. "But I also think people who send texts like that usually mean them." "So you're saying trust her but verify?" "I'm saying trust your instincts. They've been right more often than not." He released my hand as the car pulled up to the airport departures level. "We're here, Terminal 4. International departures. Stay close to me." We moved through the terminal with purposeful speed. Mateo's presence seemed to part crowds. People instinctively moved aside when they saw him coming. "He'll be at the gate," Mateo said. "Security checkpoint won't stop him. He's not wanted for anything. But the gate gives us a contained space." We reached the security checkpoint. Mateo pulled out his phone, showed something to the TSA supervisor, some kind of credentials or clearance I didn't see clearly. Whatever it was, it worked. "Gate B47, the supervisor said. "But sir, you can't detain anyone without—" "We're not detaining anyone. We're having a conversation with a colleague." Mateo's smile was cold. "Unless he gives us a reason to involve actual law enforcement." We cleared security and headed toward B47. The departure board showed the Costa Rica flight was boarding in 30 minutes. And there, sitting at the gate with a laptop bag and a carry-on, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him, was Ryan Mitchell. He saw us the moment we rounded the corner, and the look on his face told me everything I needed to know about his guilt. Ryan's face went through 3 distinct emotions in the span of 2 seconds: recognition, fear, and something that looked almost like relief. He stood as we approached, his laptop bag clutched to his chest like a shield. "Clara," his voice cracked. I wasn't expecting. "No?" I stopped 3 feet away from him, close enough to see the dark circles under his eyes, the way his hands were shaking. "What were you expecting, Ryan? That you'd make it to Costa Rica before anyone figured out what you did?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't." The word came out harder than I intended. "Don't insult me by lying. We have the authentication logs. We have the IP address from the Red Hook coffee shop. We have the $25,000 payment from Luca Moretti's shell company." I took a step closer. "We have everything except the one thing I actually want. Which is why." He looked past me to Mateo, who stood silent and watchful, blocking the path to the jetway. "I can't. If I talk, he'll—" "He already has," Mateo said quietly. "The moment you ran, Luca marked you as a liability. You think he's going to protect you. He set you up to take the fall, just like he set Clara up, just like he's been setting pieces in motion for months." Ryan's face crumbled. He sank back into his chair, the laptop bag falling to the floor. "He said it was foolproof," Ryan whispered. He said the logs would be erased, that there'd be no trail, that I'd get the money, take a vacation, and by the time I came back, everything would be resolved and Clara would be fine. Just shaken up a bit, not actually arrested. But you knew what you were doing, I said. You knew that using my credentials to bypass security would frame me. He said you'd be questioned and released, that Mateo would protect you. Ryan looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. He said it wasn't about hurting you. It was about creating leverage against Mateo, political pressure, that you'd be fine. And you believed him? I needed the money, his voice broke. My sister, she's sick. Stage 4 cancer. The treatments aren't covered by insurance. I've been drowning in medical debt for 8 months. When Luca approached me, when he offered $25,000 for one simple task. It wasn't simple, I said. And I would have helped you. If you'd told me about your sister, about the debt, I would have found a way. I know. He wiped his eyes roughly. I know you would have. That's what makes this so much worse. You've been nothing but good to me, and I sold you out for money I haven't even been able to use because I've been too terrified to access the account. Mateo moved closer. How did Luca contact you? 6 weeks ago, he showed up at a coffee shop where I was working late. Said he'd been watching our company's vendor operations. That he was impressed with the security architecture. He asked technical questions about the backup authentication system. Made it sound like professional curiosity. Ryan's hands twisted together. Then 2 weeks later, he came back, made the offer. Said all I had to do was request one authentication token at a specific time during the Castellano wedding. That's it. One token request. Did he tell you what it was for? He said it was to test a security vulnerability. That he was helping Mateo identify weaknesses in his protection systems. Ryan laughed bitterly. I actually believed that for about 48 hours. Then I saw the news about the cocaine, about Clara being questioned, and I knew I'd been played. Why didn't you come to me then? I asked. Because by then I'd already spent the money on my sister's treatment, and Luca made it very clear what would happen if I talked. He looked at Mateo. He said you'd kill me, that I wouldn't survive long enough to testify. I don't kill people, Mateo said, but Luca does. And the moment you outlived your usefulness to him, you became a loose end he'd need to tie off. That flight to Costa Rica. That was your only smart move in 6 weeks. Except we're here now, Ryan said. Which means I'm not getting on that plane. Which means Luca's going to know I talked to you. Yes, Mateo said. Which is why you're going to tell us everything, every conversation, every instruction, every piece of leverage he used. He pulled out his phone, set it to record. And then you're going to repeat it all to my attorney, who's going to use it to destroy Luca Moretti in a way that doesn't require anyone dying. Ryan stared at the phone. If I do this, if I testify, your sister's medical bills get paid in full, I said. By me, not as a bribe, as the severance package you would have earned if you'd quit honorably instead of betraying me. His head snapped up. Clara, you don't have to. I know I don't have to, but your sister didn't do anything wrong. She shouldn't suffer because you made a terrible choice. I crouched down so we were eye level. You're going to lose your job. You're going to face legal consequences for what you did. But your sister is going to get the treatment she needs. That's the deal. Ryan's face crumpled completely. I'm so sorry. I know. Now start talking. The confession took 43 minutes. By the time Ryan finished, Mateo's attorney had arrived with a notary and 2 witnesses. Ryan signed a sworn statement, provided copies of every communication with Luca, text messages from burner phones, email exchanges with the shell company, wire transfer receipts. The evidence was devastating. Mateo made 3 phone calls while we waited for Port Authority police to escort Ryan to a holding room. Based on my complaint for unauthorized computer access. The conversations were brief, coded, but I understood enough to know he was setting something in motion. What happens now? I asked as we walked back through the terminal. Now we bring down Luca Moretti without starting a war. Mateo guided me toward the exit. Vincent Castellano's wedding was neutral territory. Luca violated that by using the event to plant evidence and frame both of us. The Commission takes neutral territory violations very seriously. What's the Commission? The 5 family heads who maintain order, prevent chaos. We stepped outside into cold November air. Vincent's father sits on the commission. So does the head of the Russo family and the head of the Benedetti family. When they hear that Luca orchestrated a neutral territory violation, they won't protect him. They'll sanction him. Sanction how? Exile, asset seizure, blacklisting from every legitimate and illegitimate business in the tri-state area. Matteo's smile was cold. Luca built his power on connections. We're going to sever every single one. The car pulled up. We got in, and Matteo immediately pulled out his tablet, began composing something. "What are you writing?" I asked. "A formal complaint to the commission, with supporting evidence." He attached files as he typed. Ryan's confession, the authentication logs showing Luca's shell company paid for the security information, the financial records proving he paid both Jessica and Ryan, the timeline showing premeditation. Will it be enough? It'll be more than enough. He hit send, set the tablet aside. Within 48 hours, every family head will have reviewed this evidence. Within 72 hours, Luca will be summoned to answer for the neutral territory violation. By the end of the week, he'll be a pariah. I watch the city blur past the window. It feels too easy. It's not easy, it's strategic. Matteo's hand found mine. Luca thought he could remove me without violence by making me look compromised. So we're removing him without violence by proving he violated sacred ground. It's elegant, proportional, and it sends a message to anyone else considering a similar move. What message? That I don't need to kill my enemies to destroy them. He squeezed my hand. And that the woman beside me is smart enough to find solutions I'd miss. Something warm unfurled in my chest. The legitimate path worked. This time, but he was smiling, almost. Don't expect me to make a habit of it. My phone buzzed. A text from Matteo's attorney. Romano has withdrawn the phone request. Case against Ms. Hayes officially closed. Press release going out within the hour. I showed Matteo the screen. It's over, I said. My name is cleared. The investigation is done, which means our deal is complete. I looked at him. I can go back to my life now. Yes, Matteo said slowly. You can. Is that what you want? The question hung between us. What I want, Matteo said finally, and what's smart are rarely the same thing. He turned to face me fully. The smart thing is to let you walk away. Let you rebuild your business without any connection to my world. Let you find someone who doesn't come with enemies and complications and rules older than both of us. That's the smart thing, I agreed. What's the other thing? The other thing is that I haven't stopped thinking about you since the moment you negotiated your brother's rehab payment, instead of just accepting my first offer. The other thing is that watching you stand up to me about evidence tampering made me want you more than any performance of obedience ever could. He leaned closer, and I felt my breath catch. The other thing is that I built an empire on control and calculation, and you make me want to set all of it on fire just to see what we could build from the ashes. That's not very controlled, I whispered. No, it's not. His hand came up to cup my jaw, thumb brushing across my lower lip. So I am going to ask you something, Clara, and I need you to answer honestly, not strategically, not because you think you owe me, but because it's what you actually want. Ask. Stay. The word was raw, unguarded. Not as my fake girlfriend, not as someone I'm protecting, but as my partner, my advisor, the person who tells me when I'm wrong and finds solutions I'm too ruthless to see. Stay in my world and help me build something better than what I inherited. And if I say yes? My heart was hammering. What does that look like? It looks like you keep your business, expand it. Use my connections to access clients you'd never reach otherwise. It looks like you move into the apartment permanently, separate room or not, your choice. It looks like you sit in on strategy meetings and tell grown men with guns when their plans are stupid. He paused. And it looks like we stop pretending that what we feel when we touch is just part of a performance. Matteo, I know it's insane. I know it's dangerous. I know that every enemy I have will see you as a target. His eyes searched mine. But I also know that I've never met anyone who sees the world the way you do, who has your combination of principles and pragmatism, who makes me want to be better than the man I was raised to be. I looked at him, at the intensity in his eyes, at the vulnerability he was trying and failing to hide. I have conditions, I said. Of course you do. I keep my business, my name, my independence. I'm not becoming someone's accessory. Agreed. You don't make decisions about my safety without consulting me. I'm not a child to be protected. I'm a partner to be informed. Agreed. And if I stay, I took a breath. If I choose this, it's because I want you, not your money, not your protection, not the access to powerful clients. You, the person who respects my principles, even when they complicate your plans, the person who listens when I push back, the person who asks for consent before kissing me, even though we were supposed to be selling a lie. Clara. My name sounded like a prayer. So yes, I said, I'll stay. I'll be your partner. I'll sit in your strategy meetings and tell dangerous men when they're being stupid. I'll help you build something better. I leaned in until our mouths were inches apart. But first, you're going to kiss me. Not because someone's watching, not because we need to sell anything, but because we both want it. His hand tightened on my jaw. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He closed the distance. The kiss started careful, testing, like he was still waiting for me to change my mind. Then I slid my hand into his hair, pulled him closer, and something inside both of us broke open. This wasn't the performance kiss from the wedding. Wasn't the controlled touch of two people playing roles. This was hunger, need. Months of tension finally allowed to ignite. His other hand found my waist, pulled me against him as much as the car's back seat would allow. I made a sound that should have embarrassed me but didn't because he answered it with one of his own. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That, he said roughly, is what I've been wanting to do since you told me to keep my evidence tampering to myself. I laughed. Actually laughed. You have terrible timing. Apparently, he pressed his forehead to mine. But I'm a patient man, Clara. And now that you've agreed to stay, we have all the time in the world. The car pulled up to his building. Our building, I corrected mentally. We rode the elevator up in charged silence. Mateo's hand stayed on my lower back. Not performance now, just presence. Inside the apartment, he turned to me. Your room is still yours. No pressure, no expectations. Just because that happened doesn't mean... I kissed him again, softer this time, deliberate. I know, I said when I pulled back. But for the record, I'm a patient woman too. And when I decide I want something, I don't usually wait long to take it. His eyes darkened. Noted. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Romano just called. Said the case is closed. Said you're cleared. Oh my God, Clara, what happened? I typed back. Long story. Coffee tomorrow? I owe you an apology. Her response came immediately. You owe me nothing, but yes to coffee. I want to hear everything. I looked at Mateo. I need to rebuild some bridges. With Jessica? She didn't know what Luca was really after. She just did a consulting gig and took the money. I pocketed my phone. I accused her of betraying me. I was wrong. You were protecting yourself. I was acting like everyone was guilty until proven innocent. I met his eyes. I was acting like you. Ouch. But he was smiling. Point taken. Go have coffee with your friend. Rebuild your bridge. I'll be here when you're done plotting how to fix your business. Our business, I corrected. If we're partners, that means you get to hear all about wedding vendor drama and seating chart politics. I can't wait, he said dryly. But the way he looked at me suggested he actually meant it. 3 days later, I stood in Mateo's office, our office, reviewing security protocols for an upcoming event while he handled a call with someone named Vincent. Understood, Mateo said. Yes, the commission's ruling was delivered this morning. Luca's assets are frozen, his port access revoked, his business licenses under review. A pause. Exile is effective immediately. He has 72 hours to leave the state. He ended the call, looked at me. It's done. Luca Moretti is finished. No bloodshed, I said. No bloodshed. He stood, moved around the desk to where I sat. You were right. The legitimate path worked. This time, I echoed his words from the car. Don't expect me to make a habit of it. He laughed, an actual laugh, low and genuine, and pulled me to my feet. Clara Hayes, he said. Partner, advisor, the woman who walked into my world and refused to let it change who she was. Matteo De Luca, I replied. The man who asked me to stay and actually meant it as a question, not a demand. I meant it as a hope, he corrected. The question was whether you'd say yes. I said yes. I slid my arms around his neck. And I don't regret it. Not even a little. Good. He kissed me, slow and thorough. The kind of kiss that promised more later. Because you're stuck with me now. Stuck with you or choosing you? Both. I smiled against his mouth. I can live with that. My phone buzzed with a notification. I glanced at the screen. My brother's rehab facility. The payment for the remaining 67 days had cleared this morning, exactly as Matteo's attorney had promised. One less weight on my chest. One more piece of my life that was finally, genuinely mine to control. I met Jessica for coffee yesterday. The conversation had been awkward at first. Careful apologies, cautious explanations. But by the time we'd finished our second cups, something had shifted. The bridge wasn't fully rebuilt yet, but we'd made a start. Some betrayals, even imagined ones, took time to heal. But we had time now, time I'd bought by refusing to become someone I'd be ashamed of, even when it would have been easier. Outside the windows, the city spread out below us, all lights and movement and possibilities. My business was rebuilding, my name was cleared. My brother was safe in treatment, and I stood beside a man who'd started as a dangerous stranger and become something I hadn't expected. An equal, a partner, someone who saw my potential and refused to let it be wasted. I'd walked into Vincent Castellano's wedding as a woman invisible to everyone except the clients who paid her. I'd walked out as someone fully seen, and I'd chosen, freely, deliberately, without reservation. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening, for staying, for letting my stories keep you company. I hope this festive season brings you warmth, rest, and at least one moment that feels like a deep breath. I'm genuinely grateful you're here. Your time means a lot to me. Until the next story, take care of yourself.